We are just days away from the For All Statewide Service Day. For the 17th year, the North Carolina Bar Association and Foundation ask lawyers from all over the state to volunteer for a free call-in event. It is your chance to talk one-on-one and get a lawyer to get some legal information. Now, as we get closer to Friday, we're talking to local lawyers about what you can expect for the event. And today we have Benjamin Winnikoff from Daggett Schuler Law. Now we are talking about personal injury law rather. Now he is taking all of your questions. You can text them to that number right there on your screen, 336-379-5775. Okay, first we're going to talk about this. You are participating in this. I want you to tell me a little bit more about what you look forward to with this this day to give information.
Sure. So this is easily one of my favorite pro bono events of the year. Our communities give so much to us. This is our chance to give back to our communities by giving up our time to answer your legal questions. We're up for 3-hour shifts. Last year alone, we answered over 6,000 calls. And really, this is an opportunity for you to be in a no-stress environment, to ask whatever legal questions you have to get some legal information.
Okay, so then we're going to bring it to the first question. Can you explain the difference between civil and criminal cases when it comes to a drunk driving accident?
Sure. So most folks are familiar with, if the penalties for drunk driving are going to be, you're going to be arrested and you're going to be charged criminally by the state of North Carolina for drunk driving. However, some folks are surprised to learn that you may also potentially bring a civil claim against that driver for any damages that they caused should they have injured that person, their vehicle, or their property. So you, in fact, have the ability to hire an attorney to pursue a civil action on your behalf to receive things such as property damage, lost wages, and medical benefits or reimbursement for medical expenses that you've incurred.
Okay, so another question. What is considered pain and suffering in a car accident?
So in addition to those things we talked about previously, another part of that civil action that you can bring, not just for car accidents caused by drunk driving, but any kind of motor vehicle accident, is pain and suffering. And that is essentially a way to receive compensation for the amount of emotional trauma that you sustained as you sustained the injuries as a result of the accident, as you've recovered from the injuries, or potentially even permanent injuries or pain that you continue to feel post-accident.
Okay, so it is also tax season. So the big question a lot of people might have, will I have to pay taxes on my car accident settle money?
So the general answer is no. Fortunately, one of the exceptions that's in the IRS codes is that if you receive a settlement for pain and suffering or for reimbursement of medical expenses related to a personal injury claim, you do not have to pay taxes on that settlement. However, there are exceptions, and they're certain that you talk to an attorney to be sure that you don't qualify for any of those exceptions.
Okay, and then what happens behind the scenes after a car gets into an accident with a commercial truck?
Sure. So if you're injured by a commercial vehicle, there may be some parts that are a little unusual than what you expect in a typical personal injury automobile accident. Primarily, those vehicles are going to be much larger than a typical car on the road, and that could result in some serious injuries that you've received. In addition, you're typically going to be dealing with commercial policies, and they're going to be moving quickly to investigate the claim and prepare their defense. So it's important for you to consider reaching out to an attorney so you can prepare your own investigation so that you can establish your injuries and that you are not at fault in that accident.
I think this is all really good advice. My other question for you too is, when it comes to the biggest question that you typically get asked during this day, what is it?
I can't say there's one question that I get asked more frequently than others, but they run the gamut, right? I mean, I think last year a memorable one to me was someone had called in asking if North Carolina was a no-fault state when it came to automobile accidents. And I want to make clear, North Carolina is not a no-fault state when it comes to automobile accidents. We get questions about statute of limitations. Statute of limitations for a negligence claim is going to be 3 years. So even if it's been 6 months since that automobile accident or personal injury action, that doesn't mean the time has expired in which that you could potentially file a civil action. Another common misconception I get is after you're involved in an accident, they say, well, who in fact are we filing this lawsuit against? I've been talking to the insurance company the whole time since the accident. And most people are surprised to learn that while the insurance company may be involved in defending the claim, that civil action is still going to be against the defendant or the person who caused your injuries, and that is who the civil action is going to be filed against.
You know, I think the other question too, obviously we have All Service Day tomorrow, or excuse me, Friday. This is a really good chance again for people to get information. You know, why would you encourage them to participate in this?
I mean, primarily because you may have deadlines, you may have obligations. There are steps that you may miss that could hurt your ability to support your case potentially in court. And by participating in 4 All on Friday, you can really get free information to tell you what those potential deadlines are, to tell you, what your potential categories of damages are, and again, point you in the right direction to make sure that you're doing everything you can to provide whatever claims that you have the best chance of success.
So we got another question from a viewer. They say, do you need an attorney if you're setting up your will?
So not really personal injury, but I mean, under the black letter of the law, there is no law that requires that you have an attorney to write a will for you. However, there are going to be certain traps or pitfalls that you could encounter if you don't take certain steps, such as having a certain number of witnesses, have the proper language. So it's always going to be my recommendation to talk to an attorney. They can typically do it at some kind of flat fee if it's not a complicated will, but to make sure you've at least consulted with an attorney to make sure you have the appropriate signatures, witnesses, and everything you need to make sure that will's enforced. Because ultimately, if you're wrong, right, then your will won't be followed, and it may result in your property going to someone that you may not be happy with that property going to. So
I think that's great advice. You're being really helpful. I know that one is a little off to the side, but
you're giving me a good preview of Friday. So
yeah, exactly. We're just getting you prepared. All right, coming up, we're going to be talking more about this, so send in your questions now.